1. The illusion of freedom. The German philosopher Johann Wolfgang von Goethe warned that none are more enslaved than those who falsely believe they are free. The operative word is falsely. Modern society conditions individuals to accept freedom as a given, even as layers of laws and regulations steadily narrow the scope of personal autonomy. Those entrusted as public servants, ostensibly the agents of the people, are instead the very architects of these restrictions. The result is a paradox, a system presented as liberty, yet enforced as control. Footnote. Legal and political frameworks marketed as freedom frequently operate as mechanisms of subtle enslavement. 2. Jobs as modern slavery. Political rhetoric frequently glorifies job creation, yet the structure of employment mirrors servitude. Jobs provide temporary survival until they are no longer useful, at which point the worker is discarded, jobless, homeless, and compelled to re-enter the cycle. In this model, employment is not empowerment but dependency. When politicians boast of creating 1 million jobs, they are in truth announcing the manufacture of 1 million more servants. The corporate state, driven by banking institutions, has successfully reframed wage slavery as opportunity. Footnote. Employment in a debt-driven economy sustains dependency rather than independence. 3. Corporations above citizens. Across jurisdictions, corporations enjoy superior rights to those of natural persons. They move across borders with ease, while human beings confront walls of immigration law. A company is welcomed, a migrant is restricted. This inversion of priorities reflects the triumph of corporate legal personhood over living human beings. The courts, rather than safeguarding individuals, exist to preserve corporate survival through procedure, bureaucracy, and the veil of red tape. The irony is unmistakable: sovereign individuals are subordinated to artificial entities. Footnote. Corporate personhood now eclipses human personhood in law and practice. 4. How bank CEOs don't understand money. Even those at the apex of financial institutions often lack comprehension of the very system they administer. Senior executives are recruited from accounting firms, trained not in monetary creation but in compliance, bureaucracy, and ego management. When pressed on the origins of money, their knowledge collapses. This reveals that anger directed at individual CEOs is often misplaced. They are functionaries in a larger system they neither design nor fully understand. The real architects remain hidden. Footnote. Banking executives enforce, but rarely comprehend, the mechanics of monetary creation. 5. Ancient pushback on usury. History is littered with examples of leaders resisting the money changers. Julius Caesar, in 48 BC, stripped private financiers of the right to mint money and issued coins for the public good. His assassination soon followed. Centuries later, the medieval church condemned usury, the practice of charging interest, as immoral double charging. St. Thomas Aquinas labeled it a crime, and Christ himself is remembered for expelling the money changers from the temple. These incidents underscore a constant theme: whenever money is reclaimed for the people, entrenched powers retaliate with violence. Footnote. Efforts to nationalize or moralize money have historically provoked violent backlash. 6. Founders versus private banks. Thomas Jefferson warned that private banks were more dangerous to liberty than standing armies. He foresaw that, through cycles of inflation and deflation, banks and corporations would dispossess the people of their land. President Kennedy echoed this warning in 1963 when he authorized the U.S. Treasury to issue United States notes, bypassing the Federal Reserve. Within months, he was assassinated. The through line is unmistakable: leaders who attempt to curtail private monetary power meet systemic elimination. Footnote. Private banking power has consistently undermined democratic sovereignty, from Jefferson to Kennedy. 7. Where money really comes from. Most citizens assume money arises from trade or government mints. In reality, Money originates through debt creation by private banks. The origins trace back to ancient Sumer, where priest kings controlled land, resources, and the first temples that doubled as banks. The earliest bills of exchange, inscribed clay tablets, were stamped with royal seals, granting them authority. Money, therefore, was never a neutral facilitator of barter. It was from inception a technology of control, monopolized by elites. Footnote: money originated not as barter, but as a centralized tool of priestly and royal control. 8. Money as enslavement technology. Contrary to popular myth, money did not evolve naturally from barter economies. Archaeological evidence shows ancient communities shared resources in cooperative abundance. Money was instead introduced as a mechanism of enslavement, a replacement for chains and whips. Once kings declared ownership of all land, subjects were forced to earn tokens to pay taxes back to those same kings. From clay tablets to fiat currency, the continuity remains: money is the coded chain binding free labor to elite control. Footnote: money was deliberately designed as a system of enslavement, not an organic product of trade. 9. Central banks and the Ponzi layers. The modern financial system operates as a multi-layered Ponzi scheme. Local banks, which the public mistakenly believes hold their deposits, are in fact tethered to central banks, private corporations with exclusive authority to create currency from nothing. If an individual prints money, it is counterfeiting. If a central bank does it, it is monetary policy. This structural fraud is masked by complex jargon and bureaucratic ritual, designed to obscure the simple truth: money as debt, conjured ex nihilo, binding nations in perpetual servitude. Footnote: central banks wield a monopoly on legalized counterfeiting under the guise of economic management. 10. Who owns the world's banks? The controlling families are well known: Rothschild, Rockefeller, Morgan, Warburg, Schiff, Harriman, Carnegie, and Vanderbilt. Through interlocking interests across Europe, America, and Asia, these dynasties command the central banks, the World Bank, and the International Monetary Fund. The Federal Reserve itself is not federal; it is a private corporation divided into 12 districts, a structure echoing sacred geometry. Governments do not control these entities; rather, governments serve them. Political leaders execute budgets already dictated by central bankers. Footnote: global finance is directed not by elected governments, but by hereditary families who own central banks. 11. Basel's BIS and the Web. At the apex stands the Bank for International Settlements, BIS, in Basel, Switzerland, the central bank of central banks. Its ownership structure is shrouded in secrecy, shielded by layers of corporate veils. Yet it dictates policy to the Federal Reserve, the European Central Bank, and others. Its reach is global, its accountability non-existent. The secrecy is deliberate, an invisible hand orchestrating currencies and economies, immune to national law. Footnote: the BIS serves as the hidden command center of international monetary power. 12. Trinity of global control. This financial empire rests on 3 independent city-states beyond the jurisdiction of their host nations: 1. The City of London, finance; 2. Vatican City, religion; and 3. Washington, D.C., military. Each boasts its own constitution and sovereignty, marked by obelisks recalling ancient priest kings and temples. Together they form a trinity of domination, preserving the continuity of elite rule from Sumerian bankers to modern technocrats. Footnote: the global order is anchored in 3 sovereign enclaves, each representing a pillar of elite control. 13. Bailouts, austerity, and obedience. The absurdity of the system reveals itself when private banks bail out sovereign nations. How can a corporation rescue a country? By creating money from thin air, then indebting the people through austerity. Citizens become collateral for fabricated obligations their governments accept on their behalf. The cycle ensures obedience, taxation, inflation, and national debt serve as instruments of control, enforced by courts, police, and armies, often without those agents realizing whom they truly serve. Footnote: Bailouts convert entire populations into debt slaves under private financial corporations. 14. Economic hitmen and imperial finance. The method of financial conquest is straightforward: infiltrate governments, bribe officials, and when necessary, coerce or assassinate dissenters. John Perkins' Confessions of an Economic Hitman outlines this playbook in chilling detail. Nations that resist are crippled by debt, destabilized politically, and ultimately absorbed into the global banking matrix. The rhetoric of development masks an empire of usury. Footnote: Economic hitmen weaponize debt to subjugate nations without overt military conquest. 15. Quotes that changed the game. Benjamin Franklin attributed the American Revolution not merely to taxes but to Britain's refusal to allow the colonies an honest money system. Mayer Amschel Rothschild declared, "Let me issue and control a nation's money, and I care not who makes its laws." Henry Ford admitted, "It is well enough that the people do not understand our banking and monetary system, for if they did, there would be a revolution before tomorrow morning." These are not fringe claims, they are confessions from insiders and statesmen. Footnote: Revolutionary figures and industrialists alike recognized money creation as the true locus of power. 16. World Wars and monetary power. Winston Churchill openly stated the purpose of war was not solely to defeat fascism but to restrain Germany's independent banking system. Germany's rise under a national credit system threatened the Rothschild order, thus, conflict was inevitable. Churchill himself admitted, Germany's unforgivable crime before World War II was its attempt to loosen its economy out of the world trade system. Wars are not only fought with bullets, they are orchestrated to preserve financial monopoly. Footnote: Both world wars were fundamentally wars over monetary sovereignty, not ideology alone. 17. The recap: Banking as organized crime. We return to the central thesis: the global banking industry is the largest organized crime syndicate in human history. It fabricates money, manipulates governments, and enslaves populations under debt. Courts, police, and armies, often unwittingly, enforce this fraud. From ancient Sumerian tablets to modern Federal Reserve notes, the pattern is unchanged: a small elite monopolizes money, while the majority mistake enslavement for freedom. The path forward is not reform of this system, but the creation of a genuine alternative. Footnote: Banking is legalized crime upheld by states, and true freedom requires constructing alternatives outside its reach.